Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2024 sequel, Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. Now, this is one of those sequels that was in development hell for quite a long time. It was in production for a bit, and then it was out of production, and it almost genuinely seemed like one of those movies that was just not gonna happen. But then there was a deal that was made with Netflix, and the ball started to really genuinely get rolling. And here we are. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that this film is great. It's not on par with the first two Beverly Hills Cop films, but it was fun. It was a enjoyable return to a franchise that I really enjoy. And it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Like, I genuinely thought this was going to be pretty lame, forgettable, considering that's what happens with a lot of these legacy sequels, not named Top Gun Maverick, that come out multiple decades after the previous installment. And it really was not as painful as I thought it was going to be. And it's surprising, especially considering the fact that Eddie Murphy's track record, other than Dolomite Is My Name, has been pretty bad. So the fact that this actually turned out to be like good or at all decent is kind of an accomplishment. So it's directed by Mark Molloy, and this was his feature film debut, and I think it's an all right start. I think it's a fairly decent kickstart to his career. It shows that he knows how to work with the camera in an adequate fashion. It shows that he's a guy who definitely has a knack for certain things, in particular, action. I think he does a really good job shooting action and chase scenes. So I think he's definitely somebody that other studios can keep an eye on if they are looking for a director to do a film for an established action franchise or to direct a new action film. And I think that'll definitely keep him getting work. And there are some moments, though, especially when it comes to the comedy, where the visual timing isn't quite there. There's some other moments where it's Netflix streaming origins and limitations definitely do arise, and Molloy's direction doesn't always cover up for them that well. But there's still a lot of stuff in the direction that I felt was pretty serviceable, pretty decent, and at times above average. Like the helicopter sequence, the shootout in the finale at the mansion. So yeah, it's one of those movies where visually it's not tantalizing or tremendous, but it looks good, and it's pretty consistent enough when it comes to its visual style and flair. So it's not one of those things where it's inconsistent and wildly uneven and all over the place. It's fairly even keeled when it comes to its visual style. And like I said, when it comes to the action scenes, it actually is pretty good. Um, Now, the film was written by Will Beall and Tom Gormican and Kevin Etten, based on a story by Will Beall. And there are things about this script that I really liked, and then there's other things about it that I felt were a little bit of a letdown. For one, I really definitely enjoyed the opening. I really liked how this story opens up with Axel in Detroit, driving around with the song "The Heat Is On" in the background, just like the opening of Beverly Hills Cop. Things coming full circle, but you get to see him in Detroit. You get to see him work and interact with different people, and you get to see this whole sequence at a hockey game and a chase involving a snowplow. And so there's a lot of stuff in that particular sequence that I really liked. There's even a nice callback to Beverly Hills Cop 2 with the song Shakedown, and there's just a good way to start things off. It was nostalgic, but not in a way that felt like it was too lazy. And I like that Rosewood is involved in the story, as well as Taggart. But I don't really like the fact that Billy isn't utilized as much as I think he could have been. He's pretty much sidelined for a good chunk of the movie, so you don't really see as many scenes involving Rosewood, Taggart, and Axel as I would have liked. There's a lot of focus on this drama with Axel and his daughter, Jane, who has an estranged relationship with her father, and so there's a good chunk of the script that's about those bonds being rebuilt. And there's a good heart to that subplot, but there's too much bickering, and there's also too many moments where they try to make this character into a fast talker at times in the vein of Axel, but the comedy that Jane is given is really poor, so she doesn't come across as believable in these kind of scenarios. It just seems like she's stepping on her father's toes and just kind of getting in the way. But that doesn't happen all the time, because there are some moments with her and her father that are kind of funny, and there's some other, like I said, genuinely heartfelt moments between the two. So it's more of a mixed bag when it comes to the way that Jane is handled, but I don't think it necessarily had to be a mixed bag. I think they could have nailed it if they just did things a little differently. Ease back on the angst, because that got old really fast, and that would have done wonders. The villain, pretty cliched. There's really not a whole lot to say about this bad guy. It's really one of those things where the actor is what makes the villain stand out, Captain Cade, because you know that this guy is the villain, like from the first moment he shows up on screen. But what I did like about the villain is that he was efficiently ruthless. The script definitely gave him a lot of moments to really show that, and I liked that his whole bit is that he thinks that he knows all this extra knowledge because he watches a lot of cop films. So he thinks that he has this extra leg up over Axel. And there are some really genuinely hilarious moments where Axel outsmarts him by taking advantage of him and his just absolutely absurd advantage that isn't really an advantage in any capacity. Even the whole bit where he's a cop and he says things like he knows how all the cops think, and Axel finds a way to twist that and use it against him in pretty satisfying fashion. So there are some aspects of that character that I think do work, but a lot of it's just very cliched, been there, done that kind of stuff with the cop. Oh, I'm not getting paid enough on my cop's pension, so I'm going to do all this extra stuff like, sell drugs and do all these extra things on the side. I like the character of Bobby, but I feel that the character of Bobby should have had more screen time, especially when it comes to him working with Axel. They don't really start working together until like over an hour into the movie. And I think that was a missed opportunity. I think they should have been working together more for most of the film. If you're going to sideline Billy, then you might as well really beef up the role for Bobby and have more scenes with him and Axel. And speaking of Axel, honestly, I saved my thoughts on Axel for last because what they do with Axel is great. Well, I mean, there are some other things I want to mention, like Taggart, the way that they handle his character. I felt for the most part was fine, although there was a moment where he was acting a bit out of character when he gets upset at Axel. But other than that, I felt that for the most part, the way that they wrote his character was pretty authentic. But when it comes to Axel, it's a return to the Axel Foley that I know and love. He's back to being the guy who's trying to talk his way out of situations. Leads to a really funny scene where he's sneaking into Billy's a place where he has his whole setup for his private investigation service, and there's these goons that are there, and so he just starts acting like he's one of them. He starts bitching about their boss, and they're looking at a photo on the mantle, and they're like, "Is that you?" It's like, "No, that's not me. It's Wesley Snipes." like that got me. That was pretty funny. So it was like the repeated Wesley Snipes references, and the moment when Axel got arrested, and he's riffing on the cops and the small car that they're driving in, calling them, the Lego cops, arrested in a Fisher Price mobile. Like, that was classic Axel Foley, and it was really nice to see that Axel again. I was honestly wondering if we were ever going to see that Axel again, considering the way that Eddie feels about a lot of things. But thankfully, Eddie decided to do the opposite of what he did with Beverly Hills Cop 3, which is even dunked on in a line of dialogue, which I thought was pretty fun too. And yeah, he's talking his way out of situations. There's even a moment at a hotel which subverted expectations in a way that was genuinely laugh out loud hilarious, where you think that he's going to do another bit where he's going to do some kind of silly thing in order to get a free hotel room like he did in the first film, but then he's just like, "Oh man, I'm really fucking tired. I'm not going to do this shit. Do you have any rooms available for tonight?" I love that. That was really funny, and that was very unexpected. And yeah, there was even that bit where he's dealing with a meter maid that was also fun, and his exchanges with Billy and Taggart were also great. The two still have great chemistry, and the script did a good job providing those three with some good moments. I just wish there was more. I get why, because the actors playing Taggart, John Ashton, for instance, is really up there in age, but still would have liked to see more of them together, because that's what fans are looking for out of a Beverly Hills Cop movie. And there's just a lot of moments involving Axel that are just a lot of fun. The whole helicopter sequence with him and Bobby, and how he just keeps progressively getting more frustrated with Bobby when he realizes that the reason why he hasn't flown is because he crashed a helicopter. And Axel still has it when it comes to the action too. There's some really good car chases. He gets involved with in the shootout at the end and takes out a couple perps. And the ending, I would have liked to have seen Axel be the one that shot Cade and not Bobby, but that's just me personally. Also, the whole thing where he dives in front of a bullet to save his daughter, it's very cliched and kind of eye rolling, but it still is one of those things where that's still tied into the heart of things, so I could kind of deal with it. I even like the ending where he sneaks out of the hospital, go to the diner, and then his daughter meets up with him, and they have another moment of bonding, and then she's like walking with him back to the hospital. It just seemed like the writers for this, despite the fact that there were a lot of moments that were kind of predictable, the villain was very cliched and kind of one note. They were having fun with it. They were providing a lot of opportunities for the fan favorite characters, whether it's Axel or Billy or, Taggart, to really have their own respective moments to shine, as well as the new uh, comers in the cast. And it wasn't doing that disrespectful, deconstructive bullshit that a lot of other sequels have been doing lately. It's like, oh, Axel Foley's a loser. And they kind of could have gone that route because it is established that, he hasn't advanced in his precinct. He's just been at the same rank for all these years. And he has been stuck in a rut and he got a divorce and his daughter doesn't want anything to do with him. So they really could have leaned hard into that, but they didn't. And I a lot of ways I kind of applaud the writers for doing that because a lot of films, a lot of legacy sequels nowadays, they lean hard into that. Like Bill and Ted Face the Music, and it's to the detriment of the story and to the overall film. And Axel F doesn't do that. If anything, it actually shows the integrity of Axel and shows that there were both sides to the falling out between him and his daughter, and that both of them need to find their own ways to reconcile. And by the end, they ultimately do. So I genuinely feel that they handled that the right way. And they even showed other characters like Jeffrey, Paul Reiser's character. They show that he has gone on to have a successful career in the police department. He's gone up in the ranks, and they give him a little bit more to do when it comes to his place in the overall story. And even Bronson Pinchot, his character Serge shows up, but it's not one of those things where he's out of place, like in Beverly Hills Cop 3. So it felt like the writers, they learned from the errors of the past. And that's something that deserves a lot of credit. Because a lot of these legacy sequels, they don't always do that. They don't always look at what didn't work previously and make a note of it and try not to do that again. They just repeat the same mistakes. Now, the cast I think is actually pretty good. Uh, Eddie Murphy, I thought he was excellent in this as Axel Foley. It's his best film that he's done and his best work that he's done since Dolomite Is My Name. Yeah, he doesn't have the laugh. He doesn't do that anymore. But he has everything else that you want out of Axel. He's still the wise ass. He's still got that charm and that charisma. He's got plenty of energy. Like, this is not Eddie going through the motions. Eddie sleepwalking through his scenes and his dialogue. And to see Eddie being game, to see Eddie being up for playing this role again, it was a blast. It was a really fun thing to see. And it was fun to see him interact with different characters and different actors like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I feel the two had great chemistry, so much so that I definitely do wish that they were in the film more and they had more scenes together because the two of them did a good job when it comes to the sequences featuring them. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt was good. I thought he did a really solid job with his role, even though he didn't have a ton of screen time. Taylour Paige as Jane. She's a mixed bag, just like her character is. There are some moments with her and Eddie that were fun. There's some other moments where those two don't really seem to work together that well when it comes to some comedic bits. And I'm not going to blame her too much for her character being a little whiny. That's what the script was asking for. But I don't really think she had as much of a screen presence as Joseph Gordon-Levitt or Kevin Bacon. It was just one of those performances where it was mid, but it honestly could have been worse. She could have been really annoying and really irritating and been a serious problem with the film, but I never really felt that way about her like some other critics did. Judge Reinhold and John Ashton, they're good in the small roles that they have. Uh, they're definitely showing their age, but they still got that chemistry. They still got that rapport with one another and with Axel. Paul Reiser, he was pretty decent too as Jeffrey. So was Bronson Pinchot as Surge. Kevin Bacon as Captain Grant. I would say he's definitely one of the better villains in the Beverly Hills Cop franchise, despite him being kind of generic. Kevin Bacon elevates the character and elevates the performance with his presence, with his menace, with his ability to just smolder the screen with his intensity. And it makes him really feel like a genuinely formidable foe. And you have some other people like Luis Guzman has a bit role in it, as well as Nassim Pradad, and they're pretty decent in their sequences as well. And the movie features some cinematography by Edu Grau, and I think the film looks good for what it is. There's some nice shots of Beverly Hills, Detroit. The Beverly Hills Cop films have never been like, other than Beverly Hills Cop 2, have never really been eye-popping films in terms of the cinematography, but it looks good. Definitely has a nice look to it. The editing by Dan Leventhal, I felt for the most part was pretty great, especially when it comes to the action sequences or the chase scenes. Those are edited fairly well. And I also really appreciated that Axel F had a lot of real stunts and things were done for real when it comes to the car chases, when it comes to the fight choreography or some of the gunplay. There's a little bit of CGI in some of the gunplay scenes, but I didn't think it was that bad. And you had stuff like the helicopter sequence, which was done for the most part for real, with a real helicopter, and the helicopter's actually flying low on a real street in a real location. And so there's just something about that was refreshing, especially in the day and age when so much of these kind of things are done behind a green screen or done in post. So that was another throwback element of Axel F that I really, really liked, because it was just nice to see that again. It was nice to see real stunts, real stuff being done instead of the fake stuff that Netflix and a lot of other studios have been prone to do as of late. And I really love this score by Lorne Balfe. I thought he did a phenomenal job with it. It's a really nice mix of different music cues from the first film by Harold Faltermeyer, like the Axel F theme, as well as different music cues from Beverly Hills Cop 2, which I thought was a really welcome surprise. And some original music too. And even like the songs that were used for the soundtrack I liked. Yeah, you got Shakedown and The Heat Is On, but he also had a new one by Lil Nas X called Here We Go, which I thought was pretty catchy, pretty fun rap song. There's a lot of the instrumental work, for instance, that I just absolutely loved. Is honestly some of my favorite instrumental work that I've heard in any film this year. It's that good. When it comes to the work by Lorne Balfe and other contributors like Sunglasses Kid, it was just so cool to hear new retro rave um, composers and artists involved in this score. And since it's a throwback in a lot of ways, it was a really good fit. and I hope we see more of it. And I felt it went by at a decent enough pace. I didn't find it to be that boring. There are a couple moments early on where it's a bit slow, but I think it doesn't linger on those moments enough that it gets boring or tedious. And yeah, it was just fun. It was a fun movie. And I honestly did not expect that I was going to see a fun Beverly Hills Cop movie again. But Axel F managed to be one of those films. Now that being said, that doesn't mean I want to see another one. I think a fifth film would be stretching things. I mean, would I see it? Yeah, but I don't think there's enough here for another run. So I think honestly, this should be the last ride for this franchise because I feel if they keep going, it's going to be like Bad Boys and it's going to get sad, and I don't really want to see that. But this was still, at the end of the day, way better than I thought it was going to be, and honestly, a lot better than it had any right being, considering how long it had been in development hell and how long it had been since the third film. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Beverly Hills Cop for Axel F. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.